Hello, everyone. I wanted to talk to you a bit today about what is going on with the Mercury retrograde that I didn't talk about in my last video. I told you when it was going retrograde and some of the issues associated with that, but I didn't tell you when it was going to go direct. And actually, Mercury goes direct on Election Day on November 3rd. Now, some people think that when they say, Mercury is going direct, that everybody's out of the woods, that the retrograde is over. That is just simply not so. In fact, on the day that Mercury goes direct, it's pretty much at a standstill for a few hours before it starts his forward motion. And oftentimes it takes, say, a week to 10 days before it's moving fast enough to be comfortable, and that's about 40 minutes of arc. But prior to that, it's going to slowly to be comfortable and to function well, and that's what we want, of course, is a good functioning Mercury. So on election day, it's virtually at a standstill, so that does not bode well for us getting some really good communication about the election. So I'm assuming that we aren't going to hear too much about who wins and who loses for quite some time. Retrograde Uranus, which I talked about also in the last video, is opposite the sun on election day. Okay, which means stops and starts, strong twists and turns, stuff coming up out of the blue. We probably won't have any clear idea for a long time. I would say maybe weeks before we know who the winner was. Now, this is so interesting because this happened back in the Al Gore-Bush election in 2000. And election day was actually November 7th, 2000. And that day, Mercury went direct in Libra, just like it's going to be going here. And so what happened, we remember that everything went back and forth. You know, we didn't have, in fact, the final outcome didn't come until December after it went before the Supreme Court. And then they ruled that Bush was the president, even though there was a lot of strong evidence of impropriety and that Al Gore actually won the popular vote as well that term or that election. But in 20 years ago, also Uranus was involved. And that's the important thing to know. Uranus was square the sun during that election. Now, Uranus was in direct motion. It was not retrograde like we have now. And now we have it in opposition to the sun and it's retrograde. So we know what's happening is going to be stronger and more potent than even happened in 2000 with the Gore-Bush election. One of my astrology teachers, a very technical astrologer, Jim Siobhan, did the prediction for the Bush-Gore election. He did all of the astrological research, and he was very, very accurate about what would happen, the backs and forths and so forth that went on and how long it would take and when it would actually be fulfilled. And he was right on. And in fact, he was picked up by the major news organizations and was interviewed on national media about what he had found and what his predictions were. And he was right on. Now, at that time, like I said, we had Mercury going direct on election day, which meant that nothing concrete ever came out that day. And we also had Uranus impacting the Scorpio sun like we have this time. Back then it was a square. This election, it's going to be an opposition. And so it's going to have the same effect, which is, back and forth and a long time before we ever get any concrete results from that. But I thought it was important that all of you know that the astrological implications now are the same as they were, maybe even stronger back in 2000. So don't plan on victory speeches. on election night and know that there's going to be a lot of chaos and turmoil going on for the next several weeks after the election before we know anything. And be prepared. Both sides are probably going to be pulling all kinds of shenanigans, trying to pull off an election victory. And it's probably going to be very interesting. As we listen to the media, oftentimes we go, yeah, I wonder what's really going on. And we can't always tell the truth by what the reporters say, but we do know that, history does repeat itself. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this election turns out based on all of the astrological influences and energies that are about at the time. So, again, pull out the popcorn because we're all in for a bumpy ride. Namaste to all.